Ladies and gents, welcome back to the Pole Position YouTube channel. Welcome to driver ratings from the first race at Albert Park, the Australian Grand Prix. A race that was very divisive, in terms of regulations, in terms of expectations, I guess not really too abnormal in terms of what we expected. We saw Mercedes dominate for the most part, but promising signs with Ferrari and a lot of ground to make up for some of the chasing pack. So the driver ratings, 6 is your average score for me. And from there, you go up and down. Better than 6 is impressive. Below 6 is disappointing. I'll be going through every single driver, starting at the back, working our way up to the front, and we're giving them a rating out of 10. And then you guys can give your own ratings in the comment section down below. Let's start with Oscar Piastri. Did not start, crashing on the way towards the grid. I'm just going with a 0 out of 10. It was disappointment. Yes, I know it was partly electrical base or engine base in terms of the reason why he ended up into the wall, but crashing out in the lap going to the grid, come on. This is why McLaren are on a great side this year, but this is sort of once again a reason why the back end of last season, why Oscar Piastri failed to win the World Drivers' Championship. It was mistakes like these, sending into the wall, failing under pressure, which hurt it. And starting on with a 0 to 10, it's disappointment. Not getting to the start, not able to show you a true race pace, not able to give the home fans what they're saying they want. I got the hat on for the hometown hero, but he was unable to deliver. So really disappointing for Oscar Piastri. A really bad start of the season for McLaren in general, but for Oscar Piastri, massive miss in that one there. Can't give him anything else other than the 0. Really, really disappointing. From driver error, again, hurting him to start off season 2026. Up next is Nico Hülkenberg, and I've gone with just NA, or unable to really rate. Wasn't able to get started. Telemetry problems there. The communication between Audi and the car was unable to be put back together after he went to the grid. So he didn't make it to the grid, didn't make it to the start, and he missed out on the race. So did not start for him, and NA rating for me. Our first DNF was Isaac Hadjar. I've gone to give him a 5 out of 10. Not too much through his own fault, though. The reliability of the Red Bull Ford is going to have to be questioned. He said it in the post-race interviews that there was multiple fault or errors with the engine on the way to the grid, and at the start of the Grand Prix, went backwards off the line, overtaken by Arvid Lindblad and Lewis Hamilton alongside Charles Leclerc as well. So it was a disappointing start. He's working his way back up through the field, but to go and have his race ended by the engine failure really topped it off in terms of being a really tough weekend for not only Red Bull Racing, but Isaac Hadjar as well. Looked really good in qualifying, got that P3. I've kept that in mind, but it's going to be below average, not finishing for a Red Bull side. Losing positions at the line wasn't too great. So Hadjar for me, disappointing weekend, frustrating weekend, 4 out of 10 for Isaac Hadjar. The next did not finish was Fernando Alonso. I'm giving him a 10 out of 10. We did not expect Aston Martin to get out there, let alone Fernando Alonso to get up into 10th place as we started that first lap there. What can I say about Fernando Alonso? If anything describes Fernando Alonso, it was that first lap. This car is an absolute tractor. It barely got to the grid. It barely got to Australia. Yet, after qualifying and just missing out on Q2, he goes and puts his car, a car that's rubbish, up into 10th place after the first few corners of the first lap. That is Fernando Alonso to a T, maximising what he could have done in this car here. And I've gone and given him that 10 out of 10 because he got good time out there. He got some learning done. This car is rubbish, but he was fighting it. He was able to stay out there and be competitive. And for that, Fernando Alonso, 10 out of 10 for getting up into 10th place. So fantastic work from the young superstar. The next DNF was Valtteri Bottas. I've gone with a 5 out of 10. In terms of below average because he was out, done by Checo Perez all weekend. Sort of looked about 3 to 4 tenths slower than his teammate throughout the weekend. The Cadillac car is slow. The Cadillac car does suffer and will suffer a lot in the first few weeks. A shame he had to pull over and retire the car. They were talking about how they were changing the steering wheel in order to get things back going in the pit stop stages. That didn't change anything because later on he had to retire. Disappointing, the fact he couldn't run out further in the race, but the fact that Checo finished the race and was lapping, 2/10 quicker than him for most of the race, I've gone and given him a below par score there of 5 out of 10 for the Finn driver. Up next is the non-classified Lance Stroll. I've got to give him 7 out of 10. He kept the car out there for a decent chunk of time. Got a lot of good data for Aston Martin. Again, drove his own race, did what he had to do, but he kept the car on the track and he kept it out there for a relatively long period of time as well. And look, Aston right now. You can't really do too much about it. The car's struggling, engine-wise, chassis-wise. It's not fit for Formula 1 right now. It's not fit for Formula 2, to be honest with you. It's a really, really poor car, a really poor setup. And look, Lance Stroll did the best he could. He got a lot of data for the side. He did his job well. He hasn't really, made too much of a fuss about it and got the job done for the side. I think looking forward in the next few races, if you can get more type of performance like this from, Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso in terms of keeping the car out there, getting lots of data in the first sort of 4 to 5 races, towards the back end of the season, Aston Martin will be thanking their lucky stars. They've got 2 drivers that can endure this pain to get the long-term gain. It's going to suck the first few weeks, but really impressive for Lance Stroll to stay out there, stay fighting, keep in control of that absolute tractor of a car and get some great data for his side. We now come to the 16th place, Checo Perez, the first of our finishers. I've gone and given him a 7 out of 10 as well for the fact that, once again, this Cadillac car has no pace. It is in a struggle through the early stages, but Checo Perez outraced, out-qualified, and really outdone Valtteri Bottas this weekend. Looked a good 3 to 4 tenths quicker throughout the whole weekend. I think at times, a bit of side-to-side battling there early on as well. I think it was a really, really solid weekend for Checo Perez. Got Cadillac's first ever finish in a race as well. Yeah, there's a few laps down, but you take it. It's more data. It's more learning. I think they've got 2 great drivers on the back of this Cadillac car to learn a lot about this engine, this setup, this overall design of this car, and get the team moving forward. And I think, especially Checo Perez, he knows, he's a tire whisperer. He knows how to maximize a really dysfunctional situation or a less than, ideal situation. Checo's the man to go to. And I think he did another fantastic job on the weekend. So 7 out of 10 for the Mexican driver. In 15th was Carlos Sainz. It wasn't quite a smooth operation. I've gone with a 3 out of 10 for the Spaniard. Look, this Williams car isn't great, and the expectations have to be higher of the team. Have to be higher of Carlos Sainz as well. He's sort of trying to maximize the most he can out of this car, finishing behind, the RB of Liam Lawson, the Alpine of Colapinto, and Pierre Gasly, and behind his teammate. It's a really, really sore sight on the weekend. I know he was dealing with some front wing problems at the change-out as well, but really tough weekend. Never really got to grips with the Williams car at Albert Park. His teammate Alex Albon didn't do amazing, but I think got to grips a little bit better and maximised the performance of that car there. I really thought Carlos Sainz all weekend was fighting an uphill battle, so I've gone and given him a 3 out of 10. Struggle this weekend. Hopefully China's a little bit better, a little bit more drivable for him, then he can make the most of this Williams car. In 14th is Franco Colapinto. I've given him a 4 out of 10. Again, another poor weekend for Colapinto. When your teammate's in the points and you're outside and really not going anywhere, again, caught up in that midfield battle there, really unable to propel himself up the grid. Obviously had that amazing moment where he avoided the back of Liam Lawson off the start line, but outside of that, really didn't do too much. The pace is not really with Colapinto. The pace has purely been with Pierre Gasly at Alpine, and a lot of steps to be taken for Colapinto to get up to speed and to really maximise his Alpine car. Really didn't see much from him on the weekend, so as such a 4 out of 10 for the Argentine. In 13th was Liam Lawson. I've given him a 3 out of 10. wasn't able to get off the line, stuck in traffic, unable to overtake. Arvid Lindblad showed the real true pace of the RB car. It probably was the fourth or even fifth fastest car on the track over the weekend. He just wasn't able to show that consistently, stuck in that sort of midfield scrap. And again, all weekend, outdone by his teammate. And F1 is a sport where you directly compare yourself to your teammate. And he was a good 2 to 3 tenths off all weekend of Arvid Lindblad and struggled as the race went deeper. So for Liam Lawson, 3 out of 10 for me. A really, really tough weekend for the New Zealander. In 12th was Alex Albon. I've given him a 5 out of 10. Again, better than his teammate. Was better than his teammate all weekend long. Couldn't make much ground in the race. Again, partly because of how poor the Williams car is, but really never looked competitive or racy during the race. Could never really cause any sorts of problems. Had a little bit of a battle there at times with Esteban Ocon, but nothing really to note of. A poor weekend for Williams in general. A struggle for Alex Albon, but better than his teammate. So 5 out of 10 for the Thai Brit driver. In 11th was Esteban Ocon. I've given him a 4 out of 10. Well and truly outraced by his teammate, out-qualified by his teammate, consistently off the pace. He did come out in the post-race press conferences and mention how he sees that the Haas cars each week have one quick car and one poor car. It felt like he was in the poor car all weekend. Tried to cause some problems versus Pierre Gasly. Got past Alex Albon, but wasn't able to get the elbows out and get that pass done on Pierre Gasly. Missing out on the points I thought was massive, especially the Alpine, which is not really an impressive car, especially around this circuit. Haas still got the better car, the better outfit. Strategy was here or there, but on raw race pace, Esteban Ocon should have had Pierre Gasly, should have been double points finish for Haas, but in the end he lets them down, so I've gone with a 4 out of 10 for Esteban Ocon. In 10th was Pierre Gasly. I've gone with a 7 out of 10 for the Frenchman here. Great to get the point. That's massive for him and massive for Alpine. A car that really looked second rate around Albert Park. We thought it'd be much quicker. We thought it'd be much more dangerous. But look, points is massive, and he absolutely dominated his teammate Colapinto. The only reason he's not high for me was a disappointing qualifying session. Would have hoped it'd be sort of where he finished in the race. If he qualified around that mark there, maybe potentially broke to the Q3 qualifying, you can see him getting a 9 out of 10 in terms of his rating, but just not the most clean of laps in qualifying. Great start to the race, great overall race pace. Great strategy, held his position well. Points is massive for Alpine and massive for Pierre Gasly. So a strong weekend nonetheless for him. 7 out of 10 for the Frenchman. P9, Gabby Bortoleto. I've gone to give him an 8 out of 10. Really, really impressed with him from the weekend. Again, another one that was into Q3. The car failed him. He couldn't climb himself up any higher than 10th place. Got a fantastic start alongside Arvid Lindblad off the line. Caused some problems in the early stages. Showed consistent race pace. I thought he was quite good in the tyres. He held his pace quite consistently throughout the stints. I think for me, once again, showing his consistency on race day. It's something that was really massive for him when he had those solid races last season, where he got those major points for the former Kick Sauber side, this year the Audi side. And look, a brand new engine, brand new start for the side. He got the debut start for the outfit. He got the debut points for the outfit. Looked really, really comfortable out there and was causing problems towards the end of the Grand Prix as well. So I've gone and given him a really, really solid 8 out of 10 for Gabby Bortoleto. In P8 was Arvid Lindblad, and I've gone and given him a 10 out of 10. What a debut race in Formula 1. What a start off the line, up into P3 off the start. Fantastic jump, and overall, great ding-dong battle alongside another young driver, Ollie Behrman. Got the elbows out, tried to fight back against the British driver. Gave us some of the best racing of the weekend. I thought he looked fantastic in the practice sessions. Really put something solid together in qualifying. Look, it wasn't perfect in qualifying, but in the race, you could almost say it was almost near perfect. Outside of getting past by Ollie Behrman, he did everything well, managed to tyres well, had consistent pace, didn't make a mistake. We saw a lot of rookies make mistakes at the same circuit last season. A really, really all-round great day for him. He's my driver of the day and my driver of the week. 10 out of 10 performance for him. Well done to Arvid Lindblad. In 7th, Ollie Behrman. I've gone and given him an 8 out of 10. a fantastic weekend for the Brit driver. Again, similar to Arvid Lindblad, showing a lot of consistency and race pace, getting the elbows out, getting that major pass on Lindblad, holding position, getting big points for Haas F1 team. Aside that, this season it might be heavily required of Ollie Behrman to pick up the major points. He's showing his quality in these race periods. In his race trim, he's consistent and solid. Mistakes are suddenly being ironed out. I think qualifying could have been a little bit better. Could have caused a little bit more problems out there with the inconsistencies with where people were qualifying. But overall, finishing 7th is the best you could have asked for on that race day, considering the big boys ahead of him maximised that. Really was best of the rest. So really impressive display from Ollie Behrman. And 8 out of 10 for me. We now come to the first of the big boys, Max Verstappen P6. Gordon giving him a 7 out of 10. Probably really harsh, but that's the expectation we have for Max Verstappen. Crashes out in qualifying, not on his own fault, but he's down in P20. He makes the comeback through the field to get to P6. I think in his own words, though, he was disappointed also because he got past all the cars he should have, but when he got to Lando Norris, he couldn't get past one of the cars he was racing. I think that's why, for me, he pushed himself down to a 7 out of 10. Struggle of a weekend for him. Really could never really get to grips with his current car, complaining a lot, graining on the tyres, couldn't keep the pace over long periods of time. It wasn't the neat and tidy Max Verstappen, which we've seen across the last few seasons. It was really raw Max Verstappen of what we saw when he first came into F1. Really quick at times, really slow at times, inconsistencies, struggling out there with these cars. It might be a worry to watch to go forward for Max Verstappen, but overall, a very solid rescue drive to get to P6. P5 was Lando Norris, and I've given him an 8 out of 10. I think he did everything he possibly could in that race there. He really was the best of the rest. The top 4 are in a world of their own. Lando Norris did the best he could, defending for Max Verstappen, keeping to strategy, keeping up the pace in a car that struggled on the straights and struggling in the corners. The McLaren car looks like a bit of a handful right now. It looks slow, it looks sluggish, it looks really hard to drive. But Lando Norris maximised what he could in this weekend. And look, he's not going to be in a title fight. I don't think McLaren will be in any sort of fight this season. But in the inter-battle fight, he takes a massive advantage over his teammate. And he showed that once again, he has the maturity to carry a car to higher heights than what it really should be. We questioned at times last season. We thought he was just doing it in the best car. But look, in this race here, he showed that if the car's not there, he can still get the best out of a tough situation. So Lando Norris, 8 out of 10 for me. In P4 was Lewis Hamilton. I've gone and given him an 8 out of 10. Starting a little bit back down the grid after a disappointing qualifying session, but the race pace was absolutely there for Lewis Hamilton. It felt very similar to Hammer time at times towards the end of that race there. Closed the gap up to 6/10 to Charles Leclerc. Really had the better race pace. If the Ferrari crew had listened to him and split the strategies and pitted him under the first VSC, we could have been seeing Lewis Hamilton in and around the chances for a race win. I think it was a really impressive display. He showed his speed, he showed his quality around the track. He looked much more comfortable in these cars here. He looked really rapid at times, and a real worry for Charles Leclerc, for Mercedes, and for competing sides as we go deep in this season here. Because if this car gets a little bit better, a little bit more competitive, Lewis Hamilton will be fighting for race wins and potentially another World Drivers' Championship. From Lewis Hamilton to his teammate Charles Leclerc, getting on the podium in P3, got to give him a 7 out of 10. Fantastic off the line, got the jump, got ahead of both Mercedes, got track position, screwed over by his side in terms of the strategy there. But look, I wasn't too impressed with his second half of the race. I thought the tyres went away from him quite quickly, looked quite off the pace, could never close the gap to Kimi or to George Russell at the front of the grid. And in the end, it was Lewis Hamilton that was chasing him down. And 2 laps longer, Hamilton gets past Charles Leclerc. So the race pace disappeared towards the second half of the race. But overall, a great first half of the race. A really solid qualifying session for the Monegasque driver. And overall, a really solid weekend for him on the podium. So 7 out of 10 for me, for Charles Leclerc. In second was Kimi Antonelli. I'm going to be harsh on him. I'm going to give him a 6 out of 10. Chaotic weekend. Look, he's just fallen into second place in the end after massive crash in FP3, needing a miracle to get out into qualifying, getting over the line, dropping in to second place after qualifying, then dropping back into second place in the race after an awful start off the line, made his way back to the field. The Ferrari strategy once again allowing him to get that track position and to control the race once he was up into second place. It was a, I guess, controlled race, but not really polished weekend where he always felt he was much more slower than his teammate George Russell. And look, we're going to mark Kimi Antonelli harshly this season because he's got the quickest car, at least at this point in time. He's got a great engineering crew. He's got a great leader in Toto Wolff. He's going to have to cause George Russell some problems if we want to give him some very solid scores on these driver ratings. And our race winner was George Russell, giving him an 8 out of 10. Again, struggled off the line. Apparently zero battery there. Ding-dong battle with Charles Leclerc, eventually getting past him, but then benefiting off Ferrari's poor strategy. I thought, though, he was the quickest man on track all weekend long. Haven't given him a 9 or a 10 just because of how quick that Mercedes car is. It's a bit of, money out the bank, if you were. They're taking reputation away from him just because of how quick that car is. You don't feel like you can give him a maximum score, but he really owned every single session. He owned the race. Once he regained that first position, he controlled it from there on in. He was competitive when he was chasing Charles Leclerc. He was causing the Monegasque drivers some problems. Overall, looked like a man possessed this weekend and a man that should cruise to the title if everything stays as is. But we know it's F1. Things will change. Storylines will change and moments will change as well. But overall, really great weekend for George Russell. 8 out of 10 for me. And that then wraps up all 22 drivers and my ratings for each one. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, guys. We're only a few days away from being back up on it again on Friday at China. So keep your eyes peeled. I'll be doing some previews, predictions. We're doing live streams for qualifying, potentially the race as well. And then back again to do more review videos for the Formula One. What a start to the season. What a start for George Russell and for Mercedes. But as I said, let me know your thoughts on my driver ratings and what are your driver ratings in the comment section down below. Till next time, guys. See you later.